as I left the court, I said, well, you know, this will kill Michael.
It's been a lonely northern winter for Paula Yates. Only months ago, she and Michael Hutchence walked this English shore, looking forward to an Australian summer and making plans for their life together.
It broke my heart when he died. It just broke my heart. It really did. It's a terrible thing, you know. I spent so long waiting for him, and it's like when he died, I now have to spend so long waiting for him again.
Instead of joining Michael on tour in Australia, Paula came to Sydney for his funeral. Michael had been found hanged with a leather belt in a Sydney hotel room. Paula's last embrace was on a visit to the morgue.
I was just amazed how cold he was. Couldn't believe it. And then I made the people at the morgue, they sent out for a duvet for me. And we got a blanket, a duvet, and wrapped him up, tucked him in. Stupid, isn't it? It's kind of stupid, you know, he's dead. But, you know, I never thought that it would end, you know.
Here was the great love gone.
Yeah, he was the great love gone, and he was just a beautiful, beautiful boy, you know.
Couple guys from In Excess, Mike.
When I first met Michael Hutchence 20 years ago, he was just a boy, full of excitement as In Excess set out to conquer America.
Extremely willing, you know, to throw all their clothing up when they get hot, put it that way.
Within a decade, Michael and the band went from hitting the road in a combi van to travelling by limousine and private jet. And along the way, he met his biggest fan, the British TV star Paula Yates.
And I'm here with Michael Hutchence, who is the lead singer of In Excess, who are on
They were
Great
both
Britain
just
and they're also the
23,
biggest group in the whole of
and the
Australia,
chemistry was
almost as
obvious.
big. And in England, everyone's very concerned about your trousers. I'm not
The
surprised.
trousers, yeah.
And how would you describe
Comfortably we dress.
it? Comfortably, yes. They look a little tight to me. Now, how would you describe the music?
Do you really think he was God's gift to women?
I don't think he was God's gift to every woman. I think he probably would have given quite a few women just a bit of stress, you know, a few grey hairs, but yeah, he was just so kind, so good, and so bad, you know, that's what you want.
A bit of wickedness.
Bit of everything.
But you found him the sexiest man on earth, you said.
Yeah, I did, but then I would, wouldn't I?
At that time, Paula Yates was in a miserable marriage to one of the most famous men in the world. Bob Geldof's Live Aid concerts for African famine victims had made him a saint in the eyes of the Brits.
I was perceived as being the woman who dared to leave St. Bob. And
That's quite a sin in this country.
and in this country that certainly was perceived as quite a sin, because people couldn't believe not only had I left St. Bob, but for an Australian kind of, you know, rock god.
Was Geldof envious of Michael the rock star?
It must be hard to be doing pubs when somebody else is doing stadiums.
Paula, was it a man fighting to get his wife back?
Initially, yeah. But, you know.
It got a lot rougher than that.
Yeah. It was terrible. It was just unimaginable.
Her divorce settlement and her battle for custody of the 3 daughters she had with Bob Geldof left Paula deeply depressed. So much so that months before Michael's death, Paula took an overdose of pills and alcohol.
I think I hoped it would make Bob realise that if he carried on pushing, people couldn't live like this. I think there was an element of that.
Screaming for help, as they say.
Yeah. So Yeah, just please stop. Just stop.
And how close did you go that day, really, to going right over the edge?
I was dead. I was dead for I don't know, not very long, obviously. Not very long at all.
Paula and Michael were hounded everywhere by the paparazzi, who were desperate to get shots of their little girl, Tiger. To escape, they came here to Hastings by the Sea.
There were newspapers around the clock outside the house to follow us anywhere, and there was a little roadworks. You know those little tents that they have, that they do roadworks in? And then we found out it wasn't a tent for roadworks. It was people with directional mics and cameras from one of the Sunday newspapers. So it's... I've got to tell everyone that my baby needs a feed. She's not grumpy.
That we will have to stop for.
I feel like she's just letting the side down to Australia.
When Heavenly Hiraani Tiger Lily was born, Michael helped deliver her at home.
When she was born, just lifted her up, and it was that sort of triumphant moment with this baby. And it was great. It was the best. It was the best day of our lives, both of us. He said it was better than doing Wembley.
That's something.
You know, and I don't want people to take that away from her, you know, that she had a father that really adored her.
Among the many hurtful things Paula has had to read since Michael's death are reports claiming Michael had never wanted this child. After months of private grieving, she wants to set the record straight.
We had a year of fertility treatment, so obviously our doctor was able to confirm all of that. In fact, our doctor never really forgot our fertility treatment, because Michael was one of the few people that, you know, he was led into the cubicle with the pile of penthouse and in fact had to go home.
But he wanted the child so much
Yeah,
that together you went through that.
Yeah, we did.
Paula says although Michael was deeply depressed at the end, Tiger was his great joy, his very reason to live.
And Michael just couldn't believe what it was like living with a baby, especially a baby this silly.
Yonder she's walking. Will she come my way?
On the day before he died, In Excess were rehearsing in Sydney, about to begin an Australian tour. Michael had every reason to look to the future. He was being courted by Hollywood producers, was working on a solo album, and above all, he thought he'd soon be with Paula.
One of the things we always did say, and both of us said, was that we would get married when it was all over.
Had he asked you to marry him?
Yeah, he'd asked me to marry him. I think we would have already done it by now. Yeah. I'm almost certain we would have done it around Christmas.
It's hard for anyone, even those closest to Michael, to understand why he took his life here in Sydney. Paula says there's no doubt he was devastated by a delay in her custody battle, which meant she and her daughters couldn't join him in Australia. He was nervously waiting for your phone call. What did you tell him?
I just said it's been postponed. I can't come until after the 17th of December. And he said, I'm going to ring Bob and I'm going to beg him. And he was heard begging. He was heard shouting, she's not your wife anymore.
Was he desperate?
I think he was desperate to see me, yeah. It had been a couple of weeks. We didn't like being apart at all.
The coroner ruled that deep in depression and influenced by drugs and alcohol, Michael committed suicide. There were suggestions at the time that his death was a result of a sex act gone horribly wrong.
All you gotta do is walk right in.
The coroner ruled that out. But Paula Yates believes the coroner got it wrong. Do you think it was an accident then?
In as much as it's an accident when you're doing something like that, I don't think he meant to die.
It was not a subject he discussed with you? This
What,
idea
suicide?
The idea of not burning out.
Oh, God, no.
rusting
Michael
away.
thought suicide was the most awful thing in the whole world, the most cowardly act, the most just a cop-out. You know, for a man with a family to think about deliberately, you know, dying, he would have just thought that was awful.
The evidence that would rule out suicide would seem to be if you had ever seen Michael using the devices of autoeroticism, or in fact, if he had ever talked to you about it.
Yeah, but I think anyone would be a little naive to think Michael hadn't thought of everything.
He was the kind of man who would try everything.
I think he had tried everything. Well, I hope he had. I hope he wouldn't. I just don't think he killed himself. I really don't. He did in the end, but I think it was accidental. And I knew him so well.
It's not denial.
No.
In the sense that you
No,
wanted
I want
him
to
to
make
have lived
myself
for you
feel
or
better.
for Tiger.
No, because in the dead of night when something like this happens, you're willing to think the most awful things. I have flayed my skin off in the night, thinking of things I could have done or could have said, or why didn't I do, or why didn't I have said. So I'm not trying to save my feelings.
The coroner seems to have no doubt that it was suicide brought on by depression.
But the coroner didn't meet him or know him, and he would not have left our baby. He just loved her, and you've seen her. Nobody has a baby like that hasn't been brought up just loved. So he wouldn't have left her. Never, 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 never.
Don't have to tell you I love your precious heart.
Michael Hutchence left the world his music, and he left his family an estate of around $36 million. There's been a lot of press speculation about his will, but Paula says Michael left his affairs in good order, and his main concern was to take care of his daughter.
Tiger and I have 60% of everything. That was his will. It was like any father would probably make when he has a child. I have no fight with anyone. I don't need to fight with anyone about anything. I need to get through the next hour. That's what worries me. I wouldn't dream of fighting.
Paula flew to Australia this week to try to heal some of the rifts and to let Michael's family spend time with Tiger. She says Michael had been desperate to raise his own family here in his hometown.
You know, you have all that wild stuff when you're young, but when you get a bit older, the thing to Michael was that he would bring up his daughters, because we were going to have another daughter, we thought, and she was going to be Australian, and to him that was so important.
What matters most to Paula now is that Tiger knows the truth someday about how and why her father died. You've had months now to think seriously about the coroner's finding. Have you come to accept that verdict of suicide?
Oh, God, no. In no way do I accept the coroner's verdict of suicide. I am going to be seeing my barrister. I will be making it abundantly clear that because of information that I, and only I, could know about Michael, cannot accept the verdict. And I won't have my child grow up thinking that her father left her, not knowing the way he loved her.
We could live for 1,000 years, but if I hurt you.
Will Michael's music and the photographs, the stories you'll tell, will they keep Michael's spirit alive for Tiger?
Oh, God, I mean, the whole room's full of photos, and we have votive candles in front of all the pictures, and we watch his videos, and we watch, you know, but we're not kind of maudlin. It's not a maudlin thing. And I think Tiger's growing up with that sense that she had a father that was a miracle, and if we only had him for a little while, we were lucky that we had that miracle for a little while.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.